about what it says here. It says the purpose of the exercises for today is to begin to train your mind to recognize when it is not thinking at all. While thoughtless ideas preoccupy your mind, the truth is blocked. Recognizing that your mind has merely been blank, rather than believing that it is filled with real ideas, is the first step to opening the way to vision. So realizing that we've got all those thoughts running through our mind that are nothing at all, that's a blank page. It's like, it's not a mind at all. It's an overlay of all the corruptions that are there, but I mean, they're so prevalent in the mind, in the society itself, the world, you know. It's everything that's happening here that's nothing really, but it's our focus, it's our distraction. And one thing I've realised is these energetic streams, they run very, very deep back into the space-time fabric, and they're being shared prolifically amongst communities, and that's all the communities are built up on. The whole world is a fabrication of a lie, it's a fabrication of illusion, and yet it's such a deeply entrenched thing. It's almost like these energies are trying to perpetuate themselves. They're trying to perpetuate themselves to justify themselves, but they're using the vehicle of our own genetic body to express through. And it seems to be that you know, here we are, determined to undo these things, and the system is here to allow it, and yet it's such a struggle at times. And I know no one is a victim. You know, I'm not a victim of the world. I'm not a victim of the world I see. That's the whole teaching, and many spiritual teachings are speaking that way. What I feel is the perpetuation of these rampant energies. And I've often heard the expression, our hope is in our children. You know, it's like one of these days our children are going to overcome the burdens that we ourselves are currently suffering. I can't do it, they say. I can't do it, but I've got hope in my children. And I'm just wondering whether, you know, the perpetuation of the aberration of thought and the disharmonic frequencies that run through the templates of our own personal individual self-identity hologram, you know, whether these feelings are saying, you know, don't give me up, I have hope that you're going to do it. Don't, you know, I'm running these connections through you back to me, back in some distant time, so to speak, and I'm hoping that you'll overcome it. And so if our hope's in our children, and my predecessor's hope was in me finding it within myself would be the logical thing to do. And then at that point I would no longer desire to perpetuate the energies of the history, but I could dissolve that and offer back down the corridors of time, offer what I've found to be true for myself to those you know, seeming parts that had taken on the illusion. So that, you know, say for example 1,000 years ago there was one of my ancestral beings, great grandfather kind of thing, and part of his fabric of being is the reality that he is Christ, and yet the cry for help that came through the generations for his offspring to find, you know, my hope is in my children, for that person to have found their hope in the offspring, that their denial of their Christ at that time was thrust onto me because they're trying to perpetuate their illusion through me. But me having taken the, how do you say, accepted the role to put to death those parts of me that are illusory, maybe I could have an effect upon that particular part back in time that could help that one know that it still is the Christ, and to cleanse their mind at that time and not perpetuate the errant energies running through my templates. In other words, all parts of mind could simultaneously find their own beauty, their own joy, their own peace, their own love, their own ability to forgive their illusions. And you know, I don't know, maybe I'm just talking a little bit here, but I've certainly felt the energy rising up within me, and like a little tremor of fear. How am I going to survive? But I know it's only the ego that's trying to survive against the knowledge of the fact that I already have everything given to me. And this world, you know, is so tightly knit, and it's so encompassing and surrounding us in the fabric of our being. And that's one of the main things I've been coming to grips with, I suppose, at various times in my life. I can walk in great joy. I can walk in great light. I can walk in peace. I can walk in love, compassion, and I can reach out, and I can actually radiate great light. And beauty is something that's, you know, it's really growing in me. But at other times I still have these devastating moments, you know, where it suddenly comes in, like there's another wave comes in and suddenly starts to question me. Well, I think it's in those moments when you're being questioned and being challenged that the transition point is there. It's like, that's your moment. That's the moment when you can do it, you know. And so I've been finding it in myself as to, you know, the ability to release these things at the point of that tension. I've spoken a lot about the teaching that I'm sort of involved with at the moment. It's called Kathara Healing, and we actually, as a group of people, it's around the world, there's about 2,000 or 3,000 people sort of involved in it. We sort of understand that parts of creation have fallen away from their connection to God's source. In other words, they've created another mind which is disconnected from God's source. The thoughts aren't shared with God, but they're shared with one another, those who would buy into it, you know. And that we've all bought into it over the generations. We've all bought into the lie. We've all been participating in the misinformation, and it's through this disassociation from our true source mind that we have created a world of separation. We're totally aware of that, but we also realise that there are parts of the cosmic structure which are not fallen into a state of disrepair. In other words, that there is a mind that's still functioning regardless of the nothingness that exists as an illusion outside of it. And that part of our anatomy is still connected to God's source, and part of our anatomy is an illusion or a DNA construct of light and sound frequencies of disassociation. In other words, part of our structure, our teaching and learning device, is connected to what we call the black hole matrix, the phantom matrix, that multi-dimensional structure of separation that's been woven through space and time, but still our body is partially connected into the living thought system, or the perpetual life flows of the creative energy. So part of us is connected to God, and that's why we feel it within ourselves, that beautiful Christ within. We feel that Christ as our true identity, but we seem to be trapped in this body of death and caught up in the decay and depravity, dragged down here into death, into gravity. We feel it all the time. We've tried so many times in our determination to overcome it. We've tried so many times, and we've been brought back to death time and time again. So I've sort of spoken about that a fair bit, about how particles of consciousness are created as the creative process through which everything came into being, and how a true particle of consciousness, being connected to God's source, would be continuously connected and perpetual in its own action and communication with all other particles that remain that living system, and how they would take on beautiful structure of experiences for those parts of consciousness which are that consciousness. And other parts have been separated through, well, misadventure, free will. Yes, I heard Christian talking about free will. We still have free will to do what we would want to do, but it must fall within the law of one, we call it. It must still fall into the connectivity of the living system, or else it would be projected out of it because of its disconnection. In other words, it broke the boundaries of possibility within